So how do you know if you have ADHD? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. My name's Christine Kodik, and I'm an ADHD coach that works with students as young as 8 all the way up to grandparents that are 88. And I help them thrive in a neurotypical world. ADHD is something that I could give you a very textbook description for, and that is it's a neurobiological disorder that affects kids and is often carried on throughout adulthood. But I like to talk about what is ADHD a little differently. And ADHD can be something that is very frustrating to the individual and all the people around them. It is the thing that causes them to be not able to get motivated to do something. It causes them to not be able to, once they are motivated, actually start it. Then once they start it, actually finish it. And so there's a lot of frustration around ADHD, and it affects people in multiple ways throughout their lives. You know, definitely on TikTok, social media, all over, there's a lot of people that talk about ADHD, some who are knowledgeable and some who aren't so knowledgeable. And so if you're someone who is like, could that be me or not? It's important to know that ADHD looks different oftentimes in different people. So it's not like when you have strep throat and you go to the doctor, they take a test and voila, you either have strep throat or you don't. So ADHD can be really hard. People will sometimes say, oh, I'm a little ADHD today, which is frustrating because that's not a real thing. You can't be a little ADHD. You either are or you aren't. But the things to look for, just for your own knowledge, are assuming you're an adult, because it looks different in young kids oftentimes than it does in adults. So if you're an adult who struggles to complete tasks, to manage your time effectively, to manage your emotional regulation, you get really angry really fast, or you have a larger than expected emotional reaction to something that maybe just needed a small emotional reaction. It looks like inability to focus on the things that you want to focus on, things that are important to you. And so those are some of the things that with adults, it's important to kind of keep in mind, and really to go to a mental health provider or a physician, a clinician who is qualified to diagnose these things, because there's a lot of help that you can receive when you actually have a diagnosis versus just thinking you might have ADHD. So one of the hardest things, especially for adults with ADHD, is finding somebody who can actually and will actually give you a diagnosis. It is super frustrating to a lot of the clients that I work with to find somebody who is qualified and gets it to give a diagnosis. So the people who are qualified by standard terms of qualification would be a doctor, so your primary care physician, a psychologist, psychiatrist, licensed social workers, licensed therapists. They're all qualified to give that diagnosis. A coach can't diagnose you. A teacher can't diagnose you. It has to come from a licensed mental health or licensed physician. But the important thing to really keep in mind, and for a lot of people, this is so frustrating, is you have to find someone that really gets ADHD, because there is still so much misinformation out there. You might go to your primary care doctor who said, well, that's really something that you have to be diagnosed with when you're a young kid. And so they'll be like, so you can't have it. Or they might tell you, well, gosh, you have been so successful. You went to college, you got your MBA, and you are a successful businessman. You can't have ADHD because you just wouldn't be that successful. All of those different things, those are still in the mindset of some people who are qualified to prescribe, but they just don't get it. So going to resources such as CHADD.org to find people who live in the ADHD world and really understand, to go and search for ADHD diagnosticians online. Like, make that part of your search. Oftentimes, though, unfortunately, those people who do those diagnoses aren't part of insurance networks. So be ready for that. And also something to, I just feel like it's really important for me to put this out there because it's my belief. It's important to, there's lots of online mental health groups coming out now who are diagnosing and then oftentimes prescribing ADHD medications. So make sure you kind of do your due diligence and really look at those companies and make sure that they have your best interests in mind and not their best interests in mind. So if you go to your PCP and you're probably going to them saying, hey, I think I might have ADHD. Here's what's going on. And they go through the process and they diagnose you. So, a lot of people, especially for adults, that causes a whole huge range of emotions. It causes people to feel angry because why didn't someone figure this out earlier? It causes people to be sad for what maybe they might have been able to do differently if they knew that earlier. It causes people to be excited because, wow, now I finally have an answer for what's been going on for the past 30 years of my life. This makes so much sense. It wasn't me. It was ADHD. It was that. And some people are just kind of stuck thinking, well, now I know this, so great, but now what? And I feel like there's that whole range of emotions. In fact, we could probably develop the 5 stages of grieving. There's probably like the 5 stages of an ADHD diagnosis. Actually, I've never seen that. That might be a good thing to think about. But what is next? I think it's important for you to know, like, if you went in and asked, there was obviously something that you noticed that wasn't working the way you wanted it to, or that was an issue, that was a stumbling block. And so sometimes some of those things can be helped with therapy. A therapist who can go back to that, maybe kind of the trauma of having ADHD and all the things that got piled on as you were figuring out your own coping mechanisms, or being told, hey, you are lazy, you can't do this, you're never going to amount to anything, all of those things. So sometimes therapy can help. Sometimes it's coaching, and that's what I do. And so that isn't therapy. We're not trying to figure out all that past stuff. We're saying, here's where we are right now, but gosh, I would like to be more productive in my job. I would like to communicate better with my spouse or my partner. I would like to feel like I am as organized as other people think I am, because sometimes ADHD folks are really good at like having that outward look of everything being fine. But yet, if you could like peel back the curtain, kind of like in The Wizard of Oz, pull that back, you see the wizard back there, right? And he's going crazy trying to do all the things. And for folks with ADHD, that's tiring. So sometimes people want that alignment with what people see on the outside to how they feel on the inside. Coaches can help with that. That's a step that can be super helpful for a lot of people, is to look into coaching to figure out, how do I do this now? How do I make those changes? How do I understand my brain better? So those are some of the steps to take. And I think too, it's feeling all the feels. If you're angry, be angry for a little bit, be sad for a little bit, but know that it's not like you have received a horrendous diagnosis. It's can be a very positive one, and it's just figuring out how to get yourself there. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not done learning things and videos are popping up on your screen, go ahead and watch them, and also subscribe for more information.